Hello everyone, and welcome to day 1 of the 6-week program on understanding your anxiety and kind of getting clear on your anxiety, how it shows up in your life, why it's holding you back, how you can start moving through it, tools and techniques you can use to move through it and to start to look at your anxiety differently and learn how to regulate your nervous system, set goals so you can create the life of your dreams, and so much more. So it's my pleasure to have you here join me for this 6 weeks. So this is actually a new program that I've created, and in honor of creating this new program, I wanted to give it away for 6 beautiful women for free. And all I ask in return is that at the end of each session, you write in the comments what your biggest takeaway is and what you've learned, / what you're going to implement after day 1. And then amazing if you're also able to send me a testimonial at the end. That would be great as well, because I love to know what you're all learning, what you enjoyed and everything like that, and what your takeaway is. But anyway, before we get into it, I'll introduce myself, because a lot of you guys are new here that I've found through Facebook and everything like that. So my name is Zoe Jean, and I am an anxiety and mindset coach for women. So I help women master their mindset, build a deep connection with their body, regulate their nervous system, and create sustainable habits. And I find working on all 4 of these to be really crucial on your healing journey, because one without the other is just a recipe for disaster. Like, I stayed stuck in chronic stress and anxiety for 14 years because it took me 14 years to find the right support for me. And that right support for me was seeing a life coach who could help me rewire the programs in my subconscious mind, because our subconscious mind controls 95% of our lives. So the reason why for so long I wasn't getting anywhere was because I was seeing counselors and therapists where they just basically got me to talk about my problems, which made me feel worse, as well as they also got me, told me to do it in the moment things, right? Like meditation, which quite often at that point made me feel worse as well. Like, I was chronically stressed and anxious. I was stuck in the fight and flight mode. Meditation, deep breathing was the last thing that I wanted to do. So I found that very hard. And the few times that I was able to calm down in the moment, the anxiety would quickly and very easily come back, because my programs in my subconscious mind were programmed for chronic stress and anxiety, right? So that those programs are always going to come back no matter how much in the moment stuff I do, no matter how much I talk about my problems. Hi Caitlin, thanks for joining. I hope you've got your workbook that I sent you. I was going to put the link in the comments again just in case to download. So basically I just found it very hard to, heal, because I wasn't getting with therapists and that. They were basically just helping me talk about my problems in the moment stuff. And then when I did finally see my first life coach, which was 3 years ago, she was mainly helping me just with subconscious mind work. And that subconscious mind work is like the most beneficial. It definitely needs to be your number 1 to reprogram the programs in your subconscious mind that are causing you to show up the way that you do. Because basically how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're programmed for anxiety, whether that's, generalized anxiety, social anxiety, whatever it is, that's a program in your subconscious mind. It's going to control how you react in every situation of your life. So the subconscious mind programming helps you shift that program, helps you shift that moment in time that you created that program of having to show up that way. And a lot of these programs that we create are conditioned in us through childhood. Like my chronic stress and anxiety was conditioned from childhood, as well as a lot of limiting beliefs I had holding me back as well, which a lot of us have. But of course, a lot of ours are different. But mine, for example, my main ones were being ugly, dumb, worthless, not good enough. They were really big ones for me. And they held me back in a lot of things throughout my life as well. So then, so with the life coach, she helped me with the subconscious mind work, helped me, shift some of those beliefs and helped me shift the chronic anxiety. But I still found that, something was missing, because I still struggled to have that deep connection with my body and find what works for me, what ways I like to connect to my body and get present in the moment. because another thing with anxiety, right, we're stuck in the future or the past, we're never in the present. So building that deep connection with our body also helps to get present in the moment. So I still missed out on help with that, help with regulating my nervous system. Like I still felt like I would jump at like the slightest thing around me that moved or if someone came near me, because I was like still in that fight or flight response. So I didn't get that help with that nervous system regulation either. And then habits as well, right? She was just like, oh, just, meditate daily. And it's like, just being told to meditate daily wasn't enough for me. Like I needed help to build those sustainable habits to keep me on track no matter what, right? Because our life is always full of ups and downs. So that's why getting help with habits as well is really, really important to keep you on track no matter what, right? And changing and learning how to find out what your negative habits are, right? Because we all have positive and negative habits, and our negative habits are still giving us something in one way. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing them. So, for example, one of my negative habits was overeating. So the way I made myself feel better, instead of, processing my emotions and my anxiety, I would just eat and eat and eat to make myself feel better. So even though it was a bad habit, it was giving me that connection and that love and that happiness that I wasn't, getting elsewhere. But then after I finished eating, I felt worse, right? So it's about also realizing what your current habits are and what the negative ones are giving you. How you can rewire those habits and get that same benefit from a new positive habit. And I thank you all so much for joining live, because it's obviously so much more beneficial if you join live. So then you can ask any questions, throughout this live as well, and I can answer them on this call for you. And I'd love for you to comment in the comments what brings you to this live, what you're hoping to, learn, and where you're from. And I'm just going to start off by talking about what anxiety is. And, basically a little bit of anxiety and stress is actually quite normal. Like if we didn't have any stress or anxiety at all, think about it, we probably wouldn't go to work. We probably wouldn't get up and go to work. We'd probably, fail tests and exams and stuff like that, because we're just like, doesn't matter what happens or anything like that. Would be more likely to even, get hit by a car maybe, because we're not in that state of, oh my God, if I cross the road in front of a car, something bad could happen. Like a little bit of anxiety and stress is normal, and it's a way to keep us safe. But obviously it's not normal when we're living in that constantly. And when it comes up, that it doesn't just fade away slowly, and we don't just process that and move past it. If it stays very strong, then it's not normal. And high levels of anxiety can affect many areas of your life. Like it can affect your sleep, it can affect your ability to concentrate, it can affect your ability to just carry out everyday tasks, and also depending on the type of anxiety you have as well. If it's everything, or if it's, say, it's social, obviously that would affect more social outings of your life. It just also depends on the anxiety that you struggle with the most as well. And anxiety disorders in Australia are actually one of the most common mental health conditions, and they affect 1 in 4 Australians in our lives. So that's why I just think it's so powerful for us to be able to be open and vulnerable with each other and express how we're feeling, because even though you might feel, really alone and like no one understands you, no one gets you, they truly do. Like I felt that exact same way when I was going through it. And I didn't even have any of these Facebook groups to support me back then. So I'm so glad to, know about them now, and to be helping other women out there find these communities to get that support that you need and that connection that you need, and to know that you're not alone, and that no matter how stuck you feel, you can get through this. And a lot of the times why you feel you can't get through this is because it's uncertain, right? Because you've never gotten through it before maybe, or whatever you want to create in life doesn't feel possible because you've never done it before, so it's uncertain. And our brains thrive on that certainty. But it's so much beneficial when we can start to thrive and enjoy the uncertain moments, because imagine if you were always certain about everything that was going to happen in your life, then your life would always stay exactly the same, right? And how boring is that? But when you open yourself up to uncertainty, like think about the million different opportunities that can come your way if you open yourself up to that. Like if I didn't open up myself to uncertainty, I wouldn't be the anxiety and mindset coach I am now, right? And I'd probably still be stuck in chronic stress and anxiety. And I was already at rock bottom 3 years ago. So I don't want to know where I'd be now if I didn't get that help then. So I really love to, like, obviously uncertainty is still going to be scary to a degree, but I love to flick that switch and look at it as a place for great opportunities and new connections and stuff that we wouldn't have otherwise. And also sometimes you can just start small when you're starting to do something uncertain for the first time. Like applying for that job that you really want, or asking someone on a date for something. Like, just it has to be just something very small that's uncertain, that you can't predict the answer to. And when that comes into your reality, you're able to see that despite that feeling impossible, it was possible. So then the next thing that you want is also possible. And I use that in my business every day, right? Like, business is a scary thing and it's not always guaranteed that it's going to work out. But if where I am now used to feel impossible for me, I also know where I next want to go on my journey is also possible, despite feeling impossible. Because where I am now is possible. It happened, and it was possible despite feeling not possible, if that makes sense. I know sometimes all those words can get a bit confusing, but yeah, basically I'm just saying that once something that felt impossible becomes possible and actually becomes your reality, you're more likely to see, oh my God, if this was actually possible, then the next thing I want is also possible. So that's also just something to think about as well. Like, how can you step outside your comfort zone and just start to create a little bit of uncertainty? Go with a little bit of uncertainty. Even maybe if you eat the exact same thing for breakfast every day, change it up and eat something else that your brain's not certain of eating. It can be something really, really minor, but small, and it can still help. And it's also important to recognize that there are different types of anxiety. So when I say chronic anxiety that I had, it's also known as generalized anxiety. So it's just that excessive, uncontrollable worry about everyday issues in life and health and finances, and pretty much just being anxious about everything. And then you've got social phobias and social disorders, which causes you to, avoid people and avoid situations of, fear of being embarrassed or rejected or not wanted. And then you've got panic disorders, which is where you have regular panic attacks, which occur to you and then cause an intense episode of fear and worry. And sometimes it creates more attacks and you decide to avoid situations where you think a panic attack could happen. And I think for a lot of us is if a panic attack or certain situation happens in one area of our life, we attract it to happen again in that same area because we think about, oh my God, it happened here once, so it's going to happen again. So then that helps us create it, because our subconscious mind listens to everything we think and say. So if something happens and you told yourself it's going to happen again, it's more likely to happen again because you're telling yourself it's going to happen again. I know that can kind of be hard to get your head around, but it's so true. Like, our thoughts do definitely create our reality. And then you've got agoraphobia, which is avoiding situations due to the fear of having a panic attack. And it's also associated with panic disorders. And then you've got specific phobias, so fears that only apply to a particular situation, such as fear of animals, insects, plants, or people. I know this one's a common one for a lot of people, like being scared of like spiders or snakes or something. And it can also be claustrophobia is another one, fear of being in closed spaces or fear of like the dark for some people as well. And then there's OCD, so unwanted thoughts and impulses and obsessions caused by repetitive behaviors and routines as a way of coping. So again, that could be seen as an unhelpful habit, like it's helping you in a way because it's helping you cope with whatever's going on in your life and helping distract you, but it's not a good behavior to have when you're obsessed with doing something over and over again and repetitive. And then also there's post-traumatic stress disorder as well, when the feelings of fear don't fade away after experiencing a traumatic life event. and it involves upsetting memories, flashbacks, nightmares, and difficulty sleeping. So yeah, as stated, mine was more so chronic anxiety about everything, and known as generalized anxiety. So, it was about health anxiety, social anxiety. I also had a bit of obsessive compulsion as well. And again, I also had stuff hold me back from the past, like past traumas and stuff as well, that were still, embedded in my subconscious mind, controlling me essentially without even knowing that they were controlling me. So I'd love for you to let me know in the comments what anxiety looks like for you. Like, what one of these resonates with you the most? Is it more so generalized about everything, or is it more social? Is it more health? Is it more panic? Is it more an obsession? I'd love for you to let me know. Because the more you open up and communicate, the more you'll be able to better understand your anxiety and what's coming up for you. And then the more likely you'll be able to find tools and techniques to help you heal it and process it and move past it when you understand it more. And it's the same with triggers too, right? Like, a lot of people avoid their triggers and their triggers make you feel worse. But I actually like when triggers of mine come up, because it's like, hey, this is something, I can now work on. Something that I can heal. So I'd also love for you to let me know if there's any, triggers that you've noticed that you have, stuff that triggers you back into that fear, anxiety, or into that thought, or whatever it triggers you into. Like, for example, when two people were whispering, when I would see two people whispering, that would trigger me, because I think, oh my God, they think they're talking about me. I did something wrong. I'm not wanted. I'm going to get in trouble. So basically, whispering was the trigger for me, the trigger to cause all of those feelings to come into me, all those feelings from past memories and programming and everything, to how I took on that to mean. Yeah, definitely. Definitely to be a mixture. So it's so common to be a mixture of them, for sure. What one of those would you say is holding you back the most? Would it be social? Does it stop you going out a lot? Health? What one comes up for you that's holding you back the most, or is it all about even? Social anxiety. Yeah, for sure. Social can definitely, be a common one, because we also grow up in childhood, and we become conditioned by our parents and our parents' beliefs, and they quite often put their beliefs onto us. And if they're also got, things from them, their past, holding them back, we take that on to be true and to mean something about us and bring that up in our life. And, we're all humans, right? We all crave that love and connection. And if we grow up to feel we need to be a certain way, and we don't feel we're that way, then that can bring a lot of social anxiety and fear of going out, and fear of being judged, and fear of not being enough. Yeah, I totally get that. Sometimes we do, just isolate ourselves because we always crave, that safety. And sometimes the only way to get that safety we feel is through isolating ourselves, to keep ourselves safe and to avoid the pain. But invite yourself to ask, I even did stories on this the other day. I'm not sure if you saw, but what's the worst that can happen if you do decide to go out one day and just interact with someone, whether that's, going to a meetup event, like you don't have to go on your own, but even just if you find one person that you feel comfortable going out with, and just starting small and going from there, and even just going to the event. You don't necessarily have to talk to anyone a lot, or even just say hello, but just, start small and go from there, and keep questioning your thoughts and bringing back to what the worst is that could happen. Because basically the worst that can happen is that, you just stay where you are if you don't make friends or anything like that, or if you don't end up going out to other events with them. You just stay where you are. So you just stay exactly in the same position you were, or maybe slightly different because you feel more comfortable going out. So that's the worst that can happen. But the best that can happen is you could create friendships, You could get out of your comfort zone. You could feel more. You could be given opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise be given, whether that's, you know, job opportunity, friendship opportunity, holiday opportunity. There's so many opportunities that could come out of, you know, getting out of your comfort zone, despite that one bad thing that could happen if, you know, things don't go to plan, you don't make friends, or maybe someone says something that hurts your feelings. Yes, it's going to hurt, but that's something you can get over. So there's way more, you know, positives that can come out of it despite the fear. But yeah, I do totally understand that, how, you know, when you're conditioned in that social anxiety, it's really, really hard to step outside your comfort zone and to feel that it's okay, that it's safe. That's why it's really, really important to, you know, start small and maybe go out with someone that you feel comfortable with. But if you feel willing to share, I'd love for you to say, like, what your biggest fear of going out is. Is it that you feel that you're not good enough, that you would say the wrong things, that you'd be judged for maybe what you do for work, or what are you scared of getting judged the most? And Caitlin, feel free to open up as well, like what you think causes you the most social anxiety as well. Like if it's fear of being judged, of not feeling good enough, of, you know, I know you're currently not working at the moment. Is it fear of what people will think about that? Maybe, I know a lot of things is people see how good other people are doing that are the same age as them, so then kind of they feel scared to go out because they feel judged that they're not where their friends and other people their age are. Yeah, that's a really big one. A lot of us are so scared of, you know, making a fool of ourselves. So basically we think it's safe to just stay back and not do anything in case we make a fool of ourselves. And that's what keeps a lot of people stuck as well, and not going after their dreams as well, because they're scared of what will happen if they fail and if it doesn't work out, and what people will think of them and that they'll be a fool. That definitely was a big one for me as well. And when you say you feel that you might be overdoing it, is that because you feel maybe you try too hard to be liked or do other things for people? Like maybe does people pleasing come up for you as well, that, you know, you crave to be liked, so you want to do everything for everyone else, or what comes up for you there? And also why you're, you know, oh yeah, I totally get that. It makes you say too much and overshare. Yeah, sometimes, you know, when you're in that anxious state, and you're not, you know, calm and regulated, like your brain's like, oh my God, like sometimes even, you know, quietness or not saying anything makes you feel uncomfortable. So you feel like you always got to be saying something. So it makes you, yeah, overshare and say things that you shouldn't say, and maybe not think before you speak because you're just so nervous and anxious that you always have to be talking, and, you know, you're scared of the silence or whatever it is. So I definitely resonate with that as well. Yeah. And yeah, also when you're anxious as well, like you're obviously quite often when you're anxious, you know, you're stuck in your head. You're stuck thinking about something that might happen in the future or happened in the past. So then you're not present in the moment. So then you're not really connected to yourself or to the other person. So it's also hard to know what to say at what time. So sometimes, yeah, that also is what can cause you to say the wrong things at the wrong time, because you're not kind of picking up on the other person's energy and when's the right thing to say certain things and when it's okay to say certain things as well. So that can make it really hard as well. And based on everything that you guys are telling me, can you notice what has changed in your life, you know, since having anxiety and what else you're no longer able to do or enjoy due to anxiety. Like maybe there's certain things that you can't do at all. Like for example, it sounds like some of you find it hard to go out at all because of anxiety, and maybe there's certain things that you can do still, but you know, it's just very uncomfortable and not enjoyable anymore, and you spend like the whole time overthinking it and trying to control the situation. And for example, anxiety played out in my life in many ways, like yes, you find it hard to make phone calls and answering phones and making appointments. I totally get that. I was actually thinking about that recently. Like, I used to find it really, like, it used to cause me a lot of anxiety to make appointments as well. So I used to, you know, avoid that. Or if I could, I would like email to find out information about something. I would never want to actually call up and find out information about it. And, you know, I couldn't attend like Zoom trainings or Zoom calls or anything like that either. It's crazy, like, how simple something can actually be, like making a phone call to answer and to book an appointment. But when we're stuck in that anxiety, it feels very, very, you know, scary and impossible, and like be judged and so much more. And Caitlin, not being able to open up and talk to people the way I used to. Yeah, I can imagine that would be, you know, really upsetting, and it would cause such a disconnection from yourself and from other people, and maybe could bring up, you know, some feelings of loneliness because you don't have that connection with people that you used to, because you feel too scared to open up and talk to people. And you're trying to avoid making phone calls. Yeah, I totally get that. They can feel uncomfortable for sure when you're in that state. But again, like whenever you think about avoiding these situations, just bring yourself back to what's the worst that can happen and what's the best that can happen. Just always bring yourself back to that as well and see if that helps you as well. And how long has that been the case for you, Caitlin? Like, when did you stop feeling like you could open up? Do any memories come up to maybe what would have caused you to think, I'm not safe to open up, or I'm going to be judged badly, or anything like that? And while you're typing, I might just give you some examples of how anxiety's played out into my life, and you can also say, you know, if this resonates with you. Well, my chronic stress and anxiety started at the age of 11 because I thought I was fat. So it first started playing out in my life by me no longer enjoying the foods that I liked. I went from, you know, being able to eat some junk food and enjoying meals out and take over my family to having to eat 100% clean. I used to love going to the school canteen one day a week. I either wouldn't go to the school canteen anymore, or if I did, I had to pick the healthies thin on the menu. I would no longer, you know, enjoy KFC with my tea, with my family for tea on a Friday night. I'd make my mum cook me hard-boiled eggs. And when we did go out for meals, I would avoid going out for meals as well because I didn't know what was going to be in the food and it wouldn't be healthy enough. And if we did go out, I'd have to pick like the healthiest thing on the menu. And so that's kind of some health, like food related anxiety. And it used to make me, prevent me going out as well. And I'd always wear, you know, like baggy, loose clothes to kind of hide my body. I used to over exercise. When I first started, I'd walk around the house for an hour a day trying to lose weight. And I didn't even want my family to know what was going on. So we used to have chocolates in the fridge. So I'd like take a Freddo Frog out the fridge and then, you know, chuck it in the bin and try and hide it and pretend that I ate it. Because I guess even at that age, I didn't want my mum to know what was going on, I guess. I remember doing that, but I don't really remember why I did it. But again, that's how bad that anxiety and that mental condition gets, that we, you know, we do crazy stuff without even, you know, knowing why we do it. And wow, so you've been experiencing it for over 10 years as well, Caitlin. Yeah, mine went on for 14 years. It definitely can start to spiral out of control and last way longer than it should, unless we find that right support and get to, you know, the root cause of it and be open with it. Are you open with your family about it? Because that's also a really good start as well. But also sometimes it's hard to be open with your family about it because your family don't always get it. Like, I remember my parents and my sister and that sometimes saying, oh, just stop stressing, like it was that simple. But then again, like they were still caring and in a way understood, but in a way didn't because they hadn't actually been through it. Like they wanted to help and that was sort of their way of helping. But in a way, it made me feel worse. So that's why it's also really important to find those people that resonate with you and that can support you and kind of being where you are as well. But my sister's actually the one that first introduced me to the life coach. So I'm very, very grateful for that. Yes, it's crazy to know that you've been experiencing it for 10 years. Like, do you know what the cause of it was? Like what the first starting point was that thought, oh my God, I'm no longer safe to go out. I'm no longer safe to be vulnerable or open up to people. Or if you're unsure, that's totally fine as well. But yeah, that awareness always really helps if you start to bring that awareness to where it actually came from. And yeah, if you have any other things that you want to add about kind of how anxiety's played out into your life as well, I'd love for you to share. Because yeah, another one for me was with health anxiety as well, was in related to my body. Like I've actually got scoliosis and kyphosis, and when I found out that, I started like living in the gym. I'd be in the gym for like 2 hours every day trying to work, like do so many muscle building workouts, and I had a bit of OCD in the gym as well. Like I'd repeat the reps, like say I had to do 10 reps, I'd quite often end up doing like 12 or something. Like I just had to do that a little bit more, and I'd redo stuff over and over because I didn't think it was good enough. So I used to do the gym pretty much every day. I would stretch every day. I would go for a long walk every day because I just like those conditions drilled inside me, that health anxiety, that unless I work out all the time, unless I stretch all the time, that I'm going to get, you know, really bad posture at a very young age, and then no one's going to want me. I'm not going to be good enough. I'm not going to be able to walk. Can you kind of see how something small, our brains, when anxious, turn it into, blow way out of proportion and make it into something that it's totally not. Oh wow, I'm so sorry to hear about that, about your father. I can imagine, you know, how that would make you feel. And yeah, being in a toxic environment would definitely bring up a lot of mixed emotions, and you know, especially if maybe you were vulnerable and then your brain took that on as being vulnerable is what caused him to be toxic to me and abuse me. And oh wow, I'm so sorry to hear about that. I hope you're in a better, you know, household now, and now's the chance that you can, you know, begin to learn from that and begin to, you know, release the pain that had on you, and to know that despite how you felt at the time and the beliefs that it caused you to believe, it's actually got nothing to do with you. It was about, you know, what was going on in his life. And we're also, like, throughout the 6 weeks, we're also going to talk a bit into trauma as well, so you'll be able to better understand, you know, how you took that on as a trauma and what's that's caused, how's that caused you to feel, and how you can prevent stuff like that happening again, and basically prevent you taking on something as a trauma, which we'll talk into. But basically, you know, anything can be traumatic to us based on how we take it on and how we see it and how we process it. Because something minor to someone can be considered a trauma to someone else. It doesn't have to always be something major that happens to be considered traumatic. Oh yeah, I love that. So good to see that you've got your mum and your siblings as well. Family's so important. So you feel really close to your family then. That's good if you do, because definitely that's another thing that anxiety impacted my life with. It definitely made me maybe not have a very good relationship with my family. And constantly, I used to live with my mum, and so I was constantly fighting with my mum as well. But that's really good if it's brought you closer to your family as well. I definitely have a much better relationship with my family now. But yeah, that's really good. And I'd love to know, like, do you resonate with dealing with stress and anxiety daily? You know, feeling stuck in your head and having no awareness to your body or no feelings of being present in the moment, having low self-esteem, hating yourself and feeling like peace and happiness is impossible, having no confidence and belief in yourself. Do you come across as rude and not approachable? I know that definitely was one for me. With living in the fight and flight mode. Like when I was living in there, I guess my way of fighting, because, you know, I wasn't strong and wasn't violent, but my way of fighting was coming across aggressive in my tone of voice. So that's when I was coming across, you know, as rude and not approachable. Yeah, no self-worth is definitely a big one for a lot of us, because quite often our parents, they maybe lacked self-worth as well. So then without their awareness, they're drilling that into us as well, that we're not worthy, or we're not, you know, we're not worthy unless we get XYZ career. We're not worthy. It basically can be different for everyone, but I would say maybe one thing that made me feel unworthy was, you know, as a kid, Dad would say I look like a furrow with my hair down. I guess, I don't know why, but I took, maybe because as a kid I didn't brush it, I don't know, but I took that on as, oh yeah, I'm not worthy, I've got ugly hair. I got bullied in school and got called ugly a lot, so I guess that again, as a young child, took that on, that must mean I'm unworthy. There's just so many things that happen to us in our childhood that help us, that create that belief of not being worthy. But you created that belief, and just as easily you can change that with subconscious mind reprogramming. But again, the more you believe, the more you feel into that belief and believe it, the stronger it gets. It's like a muscle. The more you believe it, the stronger it gets. It just keeps getting stronger and stronger. But again, the more you question it, the more subconscious mind programming you do, it loses its power and eventually doesn't bother you anymore. Like occasionally you might get the slightest feeling of not being worthy, but then you're like, hey, that's not true, and you quickly snap out of it. Okay, who tells you that you're intimidating? It's also hard sometimes because, like, what you'll also learn with the subconscious mind work is we all take in things differently based on our own programs. Like, we all, you know, we all see certain things, hear certain things, feel certain things, but we can only take in a certain amount of information at a time, and the information we take in and store will be dependent on our current beliefs, our current programming, our current values, our past. Like, it will just be based on all of that. So someone might find you intimidating just based on the programs in their subconscious mind, something that's happened to kind of them in the past. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are. But again, it depends, I guess, how many people are intimidating. Like sometimes it might just be their version of whatever's happening. It mightn't be true, but sometimes it can also be good to kind of question that yourself, to be like, is it possible that I'm ever intimidating in a way? Because that could be something that you could work on, or it could just be, you know, the way they perceive it as well, is because we all perceive things differently. Like, I still remember in school, I had a relief teacher once, and she's like, don't look at me like that. And I'm thinking, I don't even know how I'm looking at you. That's just my face. So that's also an example of, you know, how sometimes people take things on when they mean nothing. They take them on as something that they totally don't mean. So that's when it's also really important to kind of learn how to change your perspective and look at situations differently and be able to look at them from a different point of view, from the other person's point of view. And then maybe, do you feel unsafe and like you can't trust yourself? Do you always look for the answers outside yourself? That was a really big one for me. I just had like no trust in myself. And as I said, I felt dumb. So I was always constantly looking for the answers outside of myself and always had to ask someone else to give me the answers. And sometimes even one person giving me the answers wasn't enough. I'd go to 50 million different people and get their answer on the situation. And then I ended up more stressed and more confused because lots of people would say something different. But that's because there's not always one certain way that things have to be done. Like there's lots of different ways everything can be done. Like there's no one way that everything has to be done. And that's also the same with black and white thinking. Maybe you're stuck that it has to be this way or has to be that way when it doesn't. There's multiple different ways that things can be done. And maybe you're stuck in being a perfectionist, trying to be perfect. Maybe as a child, your parents are really strict with you about having to do things a certain way. So maybe that created the belief of everything has to be perfect to, be good enough and to, be liked. Maybe you grew up with a parent who was a real people pleaser, should do everything for everyone else and put herself last. So maybe that also created the belief in you that you have to put everyone else first and put yourself last in order to be liked. Maybe you keep yourself small and don't even try and do things. And this can also come from that fear, that social anxiety, and that fear of being judged, that fear of making a fool of yourself, that fear of failing. This is quite common for a lot of people. And it was myself for ages as well. Like, I thought about being a coach for so long before I mentioned it to my family. So then when I mentioned it to my sister, she asked me if my coach, the person that I saw, told me to do it, because she just never heard anything about it before. So it just she was like, what the hell? Like, where did that come from? But I had been thinking about it for so long. I just hadn't put any action in place because I was too scared of being judged, that I was keeping myself small for so long till it got to the point and it's like, nah, I'm just going to do it. I did set a goal in mind of when I wanted to start, and I ended up starting a month early, so I'm proud of that. But for so long, I was putting it off. I was like, no, I'll start here, I'll start there. I'm glad that I did start, but I definitely didn't start as soon as I wanted to because of that fact of, being so fearful and not knowing what people would think. And I think my mum and dad still don't really get it, but that's fine. Like, I'm realizing that I have a better relationship with them now, but there's still certain things that they don't get or they don't understand, and that's okay. They don't need to understand it all. I can now meet them on their level when I need to and understand that they're not always going to get it. They're not always going to understand. And sometimes they might say mean things to me, but that's based on, their programs and stuff. I'm not going to take that on to mean anything about me. And when you guys can learn that, it's so powerful. Sometimes you think someone's having a go at you, like whether it's a family member or friend, but what they're saying sometimes is coming from a place of love, a place of trying to protect you and look after you and help you. But we quite often take that on as they're judging us. And maybe you get stuck in playing the victim in situations, like maybe you don't have the life that you want and you blame it on external situations, like it's because of my upbringing, it's because of not having enough money, it's because of what XYZ person did to me. Maybe you're playing the victim and not taking responsibility for your life. Like, I know that's a hard one, but it's definitely something you want to look at working on, because basically you want to be living at cause, where you take full responsibility for your life. But when you're living in victim, you're living in effect. So that everything happens to you and you can't control it and you have no say in how your life goes. And of course, things will always happen in our lives that are outside of our control, for sure. But we can still live at cause by choosing what we hold on to and what we let go of, and what we let that situation mean about us and how we let that situation affect us. Also, feel free to let me know how you feel about that. Like, do you feel that you tend to say, oh, you tend to put the blame on someone else, that it's not my fault that this happened, it's XYZ Z person's fault, or this happened because of this? Like, do you feel that you lack that responsibility? Because sometimes, you know, we also do that because it's our way of feeling like it's okay to stay where we are because it's not our fault and it's just the way our life is, and that it's not our responsibility to change our lives. And maybe you're having sleep issues as well. That was definitely a big one for me as well. When I was suffering from chronic stress and anxiety, I definitely had bad insomnia for sure. And it makes sense, right? Like, in order to sleep, we need to feel safe and comfortable. And when we're stuck in fight and flight mode, of course we don't feel safe. We're ready to run away in case a tiger or a lion or something comes to attack us, right? Because that's where that body response was conditioned into us. It needed to be from many, many years ago in the caveman days, you know, to keep yourself safe. But if I'm stuck in that mentality 24/7, of course I'm not going to be able to relax and sleep. So it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Sometimes it's also in different situations. Some situations we can be at cause and take responsibility, and in other situations we can still be living in that effect for sure. Yeah, for sure. So if you blame many situations daily on why it's hard to move forward, then that's definitely, living in that, you know, effect state that you can't move forward because of what's happening, you know, externally, for sure. So it's definitely something to be curious to work on as well. And that also starts with doing all that questioning as well. And maybe you don't go out because of your anxiety, which a lot of you are telling me that that's the case for you. Or when you do go out, maybe you choose the wrong friends. Like, this happened to me. Like, I didn't have a lot of friends growing up, and, you know, most people got their first boyfriend at a young age. I didn't till I was 16, and he was not a very good person at all. He wasn't abusive, but he was verbally abusive, I would say, but he wasn't like physically or anything like that. But he just wasn't a very good person. And because I felt so unworthy and so desperately wanted a boyfriend to fit in and be like everyone else, I got into the relationship with the wrong type of person, and got in friend groups with the wrong type of friends, just in order to feel, you know, love and connected and to get what other people had. So I don't know if that resonates with any of you as well. Maybe you feel alone and like no one understands you. That was a really big one for me, especially, you know, not having very many friends, and then my family and that thinking it was as simple as just stop stressing. And I didn't have like these Facebook groups when I was going through it either. Maybe your anxiety is stopping you from being consistent with things. Like, maybe you're able to start things, but then your anxiety and your programs come up and stop you from doing that and self-sabotage you. Maybe you've no self-love or self-respect for yourself. And do you procrastinate a lot when it comes to doing things? Because procrastination can also come from, you know, being a perfectionist as well. Like, sometimes you procrastinate doing it because you have that, you know, fear that it needs to be perfect, and that it's like difficult, and you like keep trying to put it off because it's a lot of work and then it has to be perfect. Well, there's many types of reasons why you procrastinate. If you do procrastinate, I'd love for you to let me know why you feel you procrastinate. Maybe you feel you can't make decisions. Again, that comes from, you know, trust and negative beliefs of not being able to trust yourself and not being smart enough. Yeah, definitely. We can be self-sabotage. We can self-sabotage ourselves consciously and unconsciously. A lot of it generally is subconsciously as well. That's why, you know, a lot of people sometimes, you know, when they see therapists or when they start to do well, but then it never lasts because their subconscious mind self-sabotages them, because it's like, hey, I got the belief that you're dumb and you're ugly and you're full of anxiety, so happiness isn't possible for you. So as soon as after you start to feel happiness for a while, it takes it away from you, because it's like, that's not aligning with my programs that I'm running. That's not aligning with the programs running in your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind doesn't like to make you a liar. So whatever it believes to be true, it will make it true. So that's why it self-sabotages you. How do you self-sabotage yourself consciously? Because, yeah, that's definitely something we can also do. I would say that's something I would do as well with my food. Like, I would know that I shouldn't eat more, but I self-sabotage myself by allowing myself to eat more, despite, knowing that I shouldn't. And sometimes I exercise and I burn a bit off, and then I self-sabotage my efforts by, feeling like, by eating more, essentially. So that's definitely goes both ways there. A lot of it is subconscious though. And maybe you feel, constantly overwhelmed. Maybe you feel you want to cry a lot and you have like a racing heart a lot, like those heart palpitations. Again, we all get different symptoms of anxiety, but heart palpitations is a common one. Maybe you feel disconnected from your body and like you're not inside your body. Maybe you feel you need to go to the bathroom a lot. I know that was definitely a big one for me. Like, my subconscious mind would make me feel like I need to go to the bathroom or go to the toilet despite not actually needing to go. I could go to the toilet and then 5 seconds later feel like I have to go again. And then that would prevent me from drinking enough water. And then that would that would cause me to feel dehydrated and not be looking after my body and, so much more. Like, anxiety manifests in so many ways and creates so many symptoms in our body. So sometimes you can think something's wrong with you, but it's not actually wrong with you. You just think it's wrong with you because you created that sensation in your body, that symptom in your body from the anxiety. And what other behaviors is your anxiety causing you to do that you never used to do? Like, I had the behavior of always rushing at work and running around. And because I was rushing and stuck in my head, I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I was doing like a not very good job because I was too busy rushing around, trying to be in control, making sure I finish in time, getting things done quickly. When you say you hurt yourself, in what way? And you don't focus on what you're doing? Is that because you feel like you're a bit like stuck in your head and not present, so it stops you from focusing on what you're doing? Is that what you mean there? Yeah, clumsiness is a big one for sure. Because we're not paying attention when we're stuck in that anxiety, so it can make us really clumsy and not think straight. And what actions are these behaviors creating? Like, for example, when I had the behavior of, rushing around and not paying attention to what I was doing, that at times would create the action of, becoming aggressive in my tone of voice at other people. Because I was so rushed and they were getting in my way, and then I didn't feel they were pulling their weight because I felt like I was doing all the work, that I was also rushing and getting so much more done than them, but not done properly. I'm not sure if any of you guys are typing. I'll just wait a few seconds. And I hope, you know, based on this training that you guys can, you know, see how anxiety is such a big topic, but we all experience it differently, and we all go through different things and have different programs and beliefs and have different upbringings. So these trainings are really important to give you that idea and give you that bit of support to help you. But to make long-term changes is really important to have that individual support that's tailored to you as an individual and your goals and your needs and, you know, where you're wanting to move towards. So at the end of this call, I'll pop a link in the chat for if anyone's wanting to book in a free call with me, that will be just myself and you, to get clear on exactly where you are, and from where you are, where you want to be, and what's holding you back, like what's stopping you from getting from where you are to where you want to be. And then when we know the gap between two, what's causing you to stay stuck, then we'll be able to implement some tools and kind of see what would be the best approach for supporting you to get to where you want to be able to heal your anxiety, to be able to heal your social anxiety, to be able to heal the limiting beliefs that are holding you back, you know, not being good enough, not being able to speak up, and everything else you're going through, because it will be individualized to you and your needs and your goals. And I'd love for you as well at the end, if you can pop it into the group. I totally understand if you guys don't feel comfortable doing a live video, but if you just want to post in the group after this as well, what your biggest takeaway is, like what you learn, and what, if there's anything you feel you're going to implement from now. Like it could even be maybe to pause before, you know, you speak, or to kind of maybe start to question your thoughts rather than just, you know, assuming what certain things mean, or question when you think you can't go out because you'll make a fool of yourself, how you can question that thought. Is this actually true? How could I prevent this from happening? So what if I make a fool of myself? Like, I'm only human. We all do silly stuff at times. It makes us who we are, right? Like, no one's perfect. Stop putting other people on a pedestal. But yeah, I'd love for you to share with me what your biggest takeaway is, and if there's anything you are going to start implementing that you've learned from today. And based on timing for everyone, we might start this Thursday night at 8 p.m. for like the live video call. And I understand if it's going to be a bit uncomfortable for you guys with your social anxiety, but I'd love for you to, you know, give it a go, get a bit more uncomfortable to become comfortable. And it might actually be a good starting point for you if you don't feel comfortable going out yet. Maybe a video call would be that first step for you as well, to be in a video call with people as well. And maybe even if you just start talking, you know, without the video on, and then when you get comfortable, you can maybe turn the video on. It's all about, you know, starting small and kind of exposing yourself to that fear, because everything you do, once you expose yourself as well, that gets better in time as well. Like, for example, when I first started my business, I was petrified of doing lives and doing trainings. But in time, it got easier and it got better because I started to get used to it. It started to become my new normal. It wasn't so uncertain anymore. Because maybe that's also why you struggle to have phone calls or go out a lot, because it's no longer certain for you. You know, you're not certain of the outcome. You're not certain that you're safe, that you'll be okay, that you can handle it. Amazing. Well, I hope you both enjoy your day, whatever you guys are doing. If you have any questions, also feel free to talk in the chat, and we'll see how we go for the call on Thursday night. And even if it ends up working better for people in future, we could maybe do it after this live. Depends what works better for people, but we'll work it out. There'll be a few people catching the replay as well that couldn't make it live to this. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed day one. I'd love for you to share your key takeaways, as I said, and what you can implement as soon as possible, but just make sure it's before next Tuesday's live. And I will talk to you soon. Enjoy your day. Bye.